Here's something nobody talks about. The loneliness hits you hardest when you're surrounded by people. You're at dinner with friends, everyone's laughing, you're smiling too, but inside, you feel completely invisible, like you're watching your life through glass. This isn't the loneliness they show in movies. This isn't crying into ice cream at midnight. This is something far more dangerous. This is the loneliness that whispers, "You'll never be truly known by anyone again." But what if everything you think you know about loneliness is wrong? What if the person you're actually missing isn't them at all? Stop for a second. I know you probably clicked on this thinking you'd get the usual advice. Join a club, meet new people, get back out there. That's not what this is about. This is about something much deeper, something that will change everything once you see it. You see, after watching thousands of people heal from heartbreak, something becomes crystal clear. The ones who truly transform, they discover something shocking. The loneliness they felt after letting go wasn't about losing someone else. It was about finding someone they'd lost years before, themselves. Here's what I mean by that. I've worked with thousands of people who've sat exactly where you're sitting tonight, broken-hearted, alone, wondering if the pain will ever end. What I've discovered will surprise you. The loneliness you're feeling after letting someone go isn't actually about them at all. It's about a relationship you abandoned long before they ever left your life. It's about the relationship you have with yourself. You see, most of us learn to love others before we learn to love ourselves. We give our hearts away as if they're not precious treasures deserving of our own tender care. We become so focused on being loved by someone else that we forget we have the power to love ourselves completely and unconditionally. When that person leaves, we don't just lose them, we lose the mirror through which we saw our own worth. We lose the external validation that convinced us we were lovable. We lose the illusion that our value comes from being chosen by another. And there we sit, face to face with ourselves, perhaps for the first time in years. No wonder it feels so frightening. No wonder the loneliness cuts so deep. But here's what I want you to understand, and this might be the most important thing you hear today. This loneliness is not your enemy. This emptiness is not evidence that something is wrong with you. This pain is actually your heart's way of calling you home to yourself. Let me tell you about Emma, a beautiful woman who came to one of my workshops 3 years ago. Emma had just ended a 6-year relationship with a man she thought she would marry. She was 38 years old and convinced she had wasted the best years of her life on someone who ultimately decided she wasn't the one. Emma sat in that workshop with tears streaming down her face, telling me she felt completely empty inside. "I don't even know who I am without him," she said. "I spent so many years trying to be what he needed that I lost myself completely." Do you recognize yourself in Emma's words? Have you ever felt so merged with another person that you forgot where they ended and you began? This is what I call relationship amnesia. You become so focused on loving and pleasing another person that you develop amnesia about your own needs, your own dreams, your own beautiful, unique essence. The loneliness you feel when they leave isn't just missing them. It's missing yourself. It's the grief of realizing you haven't been home to your own heart in so long that it feels like a foreign place. But here's the miracle, darling. This painful awakening is actually the beginning of the most important love story of your life. The love story between you and you. In my book, You Can Heal Your Life, I write extensively about how our external relationships mirror our internal relationship with ourselves. If you don't treat yourself with love and respect, you'll attract people who don't treat you with love and respect. If you don't believe you're worthy of devotion, you'll find yourself with people who are unable to offer devotion. The person who just left your life wasn't rejecting you, they were reflecting back to you exactly how you've been treating yourself all along. Now, I know that might sound harsh and your mind might be protesting right now, but Louise, you don't understand. He was the one who cheated. She was the one who left. I was nothing but loving and giving. And I believe you, honey. I believe you gave everything you had to that relationship. But I want you to ask yourself this question, and please be gentle with yourself as you consider it. How much of that love and giving did you reserve for yourself? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and spoke to yourself with the same tenderness you showed them? When was the last time you prioritized your own needs with the same urgency you showed for theirs? When was the last time you forgave yourself for a mistake with the same compassion you offered them? The loneliness you're feeling is your soul's way of saying, it's time to come home to me. But here's where most people make a critical mistake. Instead of using this loneliness as an invitation to develop a loving relationship with themselves, they try to escape it as quickly as possible. They jump into another relationship, throw themselves into work, or numb the pain with substances or distractions. This is like putting a bandage on a wound without cleaning it first. The infection of self-abandonment just spreads deeper. Let me share with you what happened to David, another person who attended my workshops. David had been divorced for 6 months when I met him. He was already dating 3 different women, staying out every night, keeping his calendar packed so he never had to be alone with his thoughts. I can't stand the quiet, he told me. When I'm alone, all I can think about is how I failed my marriage. All I can hear is my ex-wife's voice telling me I'm not enough. David was running from his loneliness instead of learning from it. He was so afraid of being alone that he was willing to be in mediocre relationships rather than face the work of building a beautiful relationship with himself. Can you see the pattern here? When we're afraid of our own company, we'll accept anyone's company. When we believe we're not enough alone, we'll settle for relationships that confirm that belief. The healing begins when you stop running from your loneliness and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine your loneliness as a small child who's been trying to get your attention. This child isn't your enemy. This child is the part of you that's been neglected, ignored, or abandoned. This child is asking you to stay, to listen, to offer comfort. What would you say to that child? How would you hold space for their pain? How would you reassure them that they're safe and loved? This is how you begin to heal your loneliness, not by finding someone else to fill the emptiness, but by learning to be the loving presence you've been seeking. In my years of teaching, I've discovered that loneliness has a very specific message. It's not telling you that you need another person. It's telling you that you need a deeper connection with yourself. Think about it this way. You came into this world alone, and you will leave this world alone. The journey in between is about learning to be so comfortable with your own essence that you can share it generously with others without losing yourself in the process. This doesn't mean you're destined to be alone forever. It means you're destined to be whole within yourself so that your future relationships are based on choice rather than need, love rather than fear, abundance rather than lack. Let me tell you what happened to Emma after she embraced this teaching. Instead of immediately trying to find another relationship, she committed to 1 full year of being deliberately single. She used that year to rediscover who she was beneath all the roles she'd been playing. She started writing again, something she'd abandoned when her ex-boyfriend told her it was impractical. She took pottery classes every Tuesday night. She traveled to places she wanted to see instead of places he wanted to go. She decorated her apartment in colors that made her happy instead of colors he preferred. Slowly, beautifully, Emma fell in love with her own life. She discovered that she was actually quite wonderful company. She learned to enjoy her own thoughts, her own dreams, her own quiet moments. And here's the beautiful part. When Emma stopped being afraid of being alone, she stopped settling for relationships that weren't truly nourishing. When she knew she was enough all by herself, she could choose to be with someone who enhanced her life rather than someone she needed to complete her life. 2 years later, Emma met a man who loved and appreciated the full, authentic version of herself that she had worked so hard to reclaim. But even more importantly, by then she loved and appreciated that version of herself too. This is the gift hidden inside your current loneliness. It's an invitation to discover that you are already everything you've been looking for in another person. But I know this isn't easy work, darling. Your mind has been conditioned to believe that your worth comes from external validation. Society has taught you that being alone means being lonely, that single means broken, that you're not complete without a partner. These are lies, beautiful lies, that keep you trapped in cycles of seeking outside yourself what can only be found within. Let me share with you some of the specific ways you can begin to transform your loneliness into self-love. These aren't just concepts. These are practices that will literally rewire your brain's relationship to solitude. First, I want you to start talking to yourself the way you would talk to someone you deeply love. Notice the voice in your head when you're alone. Is it critical, harsh, impatient? Would you speak to a dear friend the way you speak to yourself? Begin to catch those moments when your internal voice is unkind and consciously choose to speak more gently. Instead of, "I'm so pathetic sitting here alone on a Friday night," try, "I'm choosing to honor my need for quiet time tonight." The words you use to talk to yourself literally shape your reality. In my work, I've seen people transform their entire lives simply by changing their internal dialogue from criticism to compassion. Second, create rituals that honor your solitude instead of simply enduring it. Light a candle when you come home to an empty house. Play music that fills the silence with beauty. Prepare meals for yourself with the same care you would show a beloved guest. When you treat your alone time as sacred rather than something to survive, your entire relationship to solitude changes. You begin to see it not as evidence of what's missing from your life, but as precious space to connect with what's most essential within you. Third, and this is crucial, start grieving not just the person who left, but the version of yourself that you abandoned in order to be with them. Grieve the dreams you set aside. Grieve the parts of yourself you hid. Grieve the self-betrayals you committed in the name of love. This grief is holy work. It's not indulgent or self-pitying. It's the process by which you reclaim the pieces of yourself that you scattered in hopes that someone else would gather them up and give them back to you. But here's what I want you to understand about this healing process. It's not linear. There will be days when you feel strong and whole, and then suddenly a song on the radio will bring you to your knees with missing them. There will be moments when you think you've moved forward, and then you'll find yourself reaching for your phone to call them before remembering they're gone. This is normal. This is part of the healing. Be patient with yourself. Be gentle with the tender places in your heart that are still learning to trust your own love. I often tell my students about the metaphor of the broken bone. When a bone breaks and heals properly, it actually becomes stronger at the break point than it was before. Your heart is the same way. This breaking open isn't weakening you, it's creating space for a love that's deeper and more resilient than anything you've known before. But you have to participate in the healing process. You can't just wait for time to pass and hope the pain goes away. You have to actively choose love over fear, compassion over criticism, presence over avoidance. Let me tell you about Maria, a woman who lost her husband of 25 years, not to another woman, but to his own fear of aging and settling down. At 53, Maria found herself alone for the first time since she was 28 years old. "I don't even know how to be alone," she told me. "I've been taking care of everyone else for so long that I don't know what I like or want or need." Maria's loneliness was compounded by the fact that she had to rebuild not just her life, but her identity. She had to discover who she was when she wasn't being someone's wife, someone's caretaker, someone's emotional support system. The first few months were brutal. Maria would sit in her house and feel like the walls were closing in. She would go to restaurants and feel embarrassed eating alone. She would watch movies and have no one to discuss them with afterward. But slowly, with commitment to the practice of self-love, Maria began to discover something miraculous. She actually enjoyed her own company. She found that eating alone allowed her to really taste her food for the first time in years. She discovered that watching movies without having to consider someone else's preferences meant she could explore stories that truly moved her. Maria started taking herself on dates. She would dress up and go to art galleries, lectures, concerts. She would bring a journal and write down her thoughts and reactions. She began to see herself as someone worth spending time with, someone interesting enough to court and romance. After 2 years of this practice, Maria told me something that brings tears to my eyes every time I remember it. She said, "Louise, I'm not lonely anymore. I'm in love. I'm in love with my life, with my possibilities, with the woman I'm becoming. If someone wonderful comes along who wants to share this love with me, that would be beautiful. But I'm not waiting for that to happen to be happy. I'm happy now. This is what's possible for you, darling. This transformation from loneliness to self-love is not just a fantasy. It's a choice you can make right now, today, in this moment." But I want to be honest with you about something. This journey requires courage. It requires you to sit with discomfort instead of immediately trying to fix it or fill it. It requires you to question beliefs you've held for decades about what it means to be worthy of love. There will be people in your life who don't understand your choice to spend time alone, to focus on yourself, to prioritize your own healing. They might pressure you to get back out there before you're ready. They might interpret your self-care as selfishness. This is where you have to trust your own inner wisdom. You know when you're running from loneliness out of fear and when you're embracing solitude out of love. You know the difference between isolation that depletes you and aloneness that nourishes you. The world needs people who have learned to love themselves completely, not in a narcissistic way, but in a way that's so genuine and generous that it overflows naturally into love for others. The world needs people who are so comfortable with their own company that they can be truly present with others without needing anything from them. And as I always say in my affirmations, I am willing to love myself completely. Notice, I don't say I love myself completely. I say I am willing, because sometimes the willingness is enough to begin the healing. You don't have to be perfect at self-love. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to try, willing to stay, willing to treat yourself with the same kindness you've been so ready to give to others. Tonight, when you go home to your quiet space, I want you to try something. Instead of seeing the emptiness, look for the fullness. Instead of focusing on who's not there, notice who is there. You. Sit with yourself like you would sit with a dear friend who's going through a difficult time. Ask yourself what you need. Listen to the answer. Then, as much as you're able, give yourself what you need. This might be a warm bath, a good book, a cup of tea, or simply the kindness of not criticizing yourself for feeling sad. Small acts of self-love are like tiny seeds that with time and attention grow into gardens of unshakable, self-worth. Remember, darling, you are not broken. You are breaking open. You are not alone. You are coming home to yourself. You are not empty. You are being emptied of everything that was never truly yours, so you can be filled with everything that has always been yours, your own magnificent, irreplaceable essence. The person who left was not your other half. You are already whole. They were not your missing piece. You are complete exactly as you are. They were not the source of your worth. Your worth has been with you since the moment you drew your first breath, and it will be with you until the moment you draw your last. This loneliness you're feeling is not permanent, it's transitional. It's the space between who you thought you needed to be for someone else and who you're discovering you actually are. It's the pause between seeking love outside yourself and recognizing the love that has always lived within you. And in that recognition, in that coming home to yourself, you'll find something more beautiful than you ever imagined possible. You'll find that you are enough, you have always been enough, you will always be enough. The love you seek is seeking you too, but first it wants you to find it in the mirror, in your own eyes, in your own heart. When you do, every relationship that follows will be a celebration of love rather than a desperate search for it. You are worthy of love, darling. Most especially, you are worthy of your own love. Start there, start now, start with this moment, this breath, this beautiful life that is yours to live fully, joyfully, and completely on your own terms. The greatest love story of your life is waiting to begin, and it starts with you learning to love the one person who will never leave you, who will always be there for you, who knows you better than anyone else ever could, yourself.